We're restoring a pair of McIntosh XR5s. Typical, foam rock. And we've showed you guys before how we do the foam replacement. We've pulled the mid-range out here and replaced the foam on it. Remember, we always recommend cutting the dust caps and using shims to center it up. So when this dries, we'll pull those shims and re-glue the dust cap. But in the process, found the high mid dome is out. So let me show you a little bit about how these things go. These things don't always fail, but it's not that uncommon either, and they're kind of hard to find and expensive when you do. We put our meter on here. No sound was coming out. We put our meter on, and you see we're open. No circuit. I've actually already opened this one up, but then we decided maybe to make a video here, so I'll put the cover back on. But normally you have to pry the cover off, maybe use a screwdriver to get in there, pry that cover off. Little damping pad there made out of fiberglass. And here's your typical failure mode right here. You see that lead? It's broken there. Not uncommon on these things. I've seen this happen before, and also on the early version of this in the ML series stuff. So now this phenolic ring, you don't want to try to lift the diaphragm off the phenolic ring. You don't want to try to get in here with your X-Acto knife and try to lift that phenolic, that diaphragm assembly off that phenolic ring, because you're going to tear it up and you're not going to be able to get it that way. And you can't remove this or separate the phenolic ring from this front here with a chisel, because the angle on the chisel's too steep. You'll just tear it up. So I use a putty knife because it's real flat. It's not going to lift it much, and I've got it sharpened pretty good. Got an edge on it, and I get it in under here, and I work it all the way around. Now you don't want to shove it in past here because you're going to damage the voice coil. So you got to work it all the way around, and it can be difficult. It's glued on there pretty solid. But I've got this one loose. So once we get it loose, we take it out, and you see the magnetic gap. And we can see the voice coil here. There's another fiberglass damping pad in here. Now what I've done to this already, I went to this side where the leads corroded through or burned through. Might have been a transient, or who knows, could have been a thunderstorm, lightning hit, something. So anyway, this is the bend from the bottom side of the coil. Opposite, you got the bend from the top side of the coil, and this is the bend from the bottom side of the coil. So I've gotten that loose, and then what I've already done this, but I'll show you how I did it. I got my X-Acto knife down in here, right at this point here where the coil wire is glued to the form, and I got enough of it up to where I could get a hold of it with a pair of surgical tweeters. And then what I did was I pulled this bottom winding all the way around. I back wound it. And now I've got enough fresh wire. Okay, so we pulled the coil wire loose all the way around, and now we're back to where we started. And now what we're going to have to do is get this wire through that hole in the form. We might have to enlarge it with the tip of our X-Acto knife, but we're going to get that wire pulled back through there, and we're going to bring it out through the hole here, and then we're going to strip back this lead wire here, and we're going to resolder the voice coil wire here, And if we're successful at that one, then we'll re-glue that to stabilize it all. So we'll show you that here in a minute. Alright, we managed to get the coil wire back wound one winding where we come back around when we started, and got it through the form, protruded to the outside of the dome here, and then we stabilized it with a piece of tape so we could solder it. And we've made that solder joint. And before we cut off the excess wire here, let's see if we've been successful here or not. Ooh. 11.1, right on the money. It lives. Alright, now all we've got to do is we'll take that excess coil wire off of there. We don't need that. And reassemble, replace our fiberglass damping pad. Check the gap and make sure there's nothing down in there. Magnification, bright light helps. Down in that gap. If you've got any doubt, or if you can see, especially if you can see little metal shavings down in your gap, you've got to clean that out. Just take a piece of masking tape here and fold it around, and then go around in here like this. Clean out any metal or anything else you see down in there. That's just some of the fiberglass that has shedded off and went down in the gap. See, that's just fiberglass. Won't really hurt anything in there, but alright, that looks pretty good. The hole's for the lead, so that's pretty easy to understand that. Now the alignment of the coil in the gap, obviously we're not going to be able to shim this in any way. So we're going to have to just go with our original outside border here, which we can see in the glue. Terminal pins in the holes, coil in the gap, and then we'll settle it down in here. Make sure it's going to drop in good. Looks good. So we'll lift that out and get a little glue on it. I just use some rubber cement here, Bostitch 100 type stuff. You don't want to go all the way out to the edge because you don't want to cover up the original boundary there. That's what we're going to use to visually align it. Now, when this glue tacks up, what we're going to do is hook up our sine wave generator and run some sine waves through it so we can make sure that it's running clean and smooth and it's not rubbing. And if we have to, we're going to do it while it's just tacked up so we can move this around just a little bit if we need to. But we're going to do that alignment with the generator. And then after we get that set and the glue dries, we'll just reassemble this like that. There we go. One more thing about the McIntosh XR5 I want to show you. When we restore old speakers, we always replace all the electrolytic capacitors. And a lot of times the crossovers are really difficult to get to. They're down inside the cabinet. You have to go through the woofer cutout. A lot of times they're glued in place. So a lot of times getting the crossover, getting to it to recap it, is really difficult. Now on this XR5 McIntosh, this is really a great piece of engineering here. This is really slick the way they've done this. Notice this also holds your two fuses, your main fuse and your tweeter fuse. But we pull that aside and look here, there's a little strap right here. When we get a hold of this strap, sometimes we use get like a screwdriver. Sometimes it takes a little bit of pull to get it, but once you get it coming, it'll. There we go. Electrolytic. These Mylars are probably still good. We'll check them, but we're going to definitely replace all the electrolytics. But look at that. The board's totally exposed. You pull the whole thing loose, set it on your bench. Makes the cap job really easy. These are your contacts. Before you go back in, burnish these contacts and put a little deoxit on that. Check all. You might want to just run through the solder joints and make sure they're all good. You might want to just hit every one of them. See, that one's suspect. But that's slick. That's a nice part of the way these XR series are put together.